Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Skyrise, your early morning show where we talk all things gaming. I'm your host Skytune, and here's the breakdown for today. The Switch 2 breaks records. We're gonna play Poke Pools. We're gonna talk about what I've been playing, BTS of the midnight launch, character conundrum, questions from Patreon supporters, and shoutouts. Let's go! Yesterday marks 1 month since the Nintendo Switch 2 released, and we have yet to talk about the records that it broke. So with the PS5, it sold 3.4 million units in its first month. Nintendo did that in 4 days. A whopping 3.5 million units were sold that fast. Unbelievable. Nintendo officially holds the most successful console launch to date. I don't know about you, but I am very proud to call myself a Nintendo fan. Let's jump on over to Poke Pools. I'm gonna open another Eevee Grove pack, but comment down below and let me know which pack we should open next week. Okay, let's spin it to win it and stop. We will slice that open and we got an Audino, Squovit, Bryony, Mimikyu, and Umbreon. Moving on to what I'm playing. I recently went back to Elden Ring with one goal in mind. I wanted to attempt to fight the most difficult boss in the entire game, Malenia. I actually didn't end up doing that, but I got to the boss gate, so that's something. Instead, I lit a tree on fire and battled these knuckleheads that you're currently watching right now. I'm so proud of myself because I spent multiple double-digit streams trying to defeat the ghost versions of these bosses in a cave and majorly struggled. Yet, when I faced the real human versions of them, I win on the first try. Ironic, huh? As I said earlier in the video, yesterday was the 1 month anniversary of the Nintendo Switch 2. And I realized that there were some details from the midnight launch that I never talked about anywhere. Not here, not Twitch, nowhere. So that's what I'm gonna do right now. On June 4th, I showed up at GameStop at 6:45 in the morning and was planning on waiting from that time all the way to midnight. Just 15 minutes after I got there, the guy who was second in line pulled up, and I'm not gonna lie, he seemed a little bit irritated at first because I was first, but I feel like after talking to me for a few hours, because we were like the only people in line at the time, he started to accept it a little bit more. And I know that that sounds really mean, but I've been second before. I know exactly how that feels. Eventually more people started showing up and there were others to talk to, but at noon when the store opened, they said that we couldn't go in, and we had to wait 3 more hours. Fast forward to 5 minutes before 3 p.m. when we were going to be allowed inside, and the tornado warning sirens started blaring. Everybody was like, oh my gosh, freaking out, the sky went dark, and I got a text from my mom that was like, take cover, and I just rolled my eyes and sent back a text saying like, I'm fine. Cause, come on, let's be honest. First of all, I'm not getting out of line while being first in line. No way. And second of all, none of those people are gonna jump out of line either. Plus, I literally live in Tornado Alley. I've lived here my whole life. It's normal to me. But I will say it probably would have been a different story had there been like a funnel or something actually life-threatening. There was like an awning, so nobody actually got rained on, but since I was the first in line, I was out of the elements before anybody else. Anyway, I went in, got my order completed, and the only thing that I had to pre-order that I didn't before was the Yonobo amiibo, because at the pre-order line, I talked about this during a different Skyrise. during that line, that specific amiibo was the only one unable to be pre-ordered. So when I finally got the pre-order when I was in this line, they said, oh, well, there you go, it's free. And I'm like, it is? I honestly don't remember the reason. I probably had points or something like that, but this was an expensive amiibo. Like, the price of amiibo have gone up exponentially. So I'm still wondering why I got the figure for free. It makes no sense, but hey, I'm not here to complain. So my order's all done, finished, and I got the receipt with the big number 1 on the front of it, proving who would be first in line at midnight. I waited around inside the store the majority of the day until the game started. GameStop hosted trivia, which I lost because every single question had to do with specific dates of events, and I didn't know any of those. And then they also ran a Smash Bros. Ultimate tournament. I sadly wasn't allowed to film it because the actual Nintendo rep for the area was there. If you don't know what a Nintendo rep is, basically their job is to go around to different stores and set up demos and displays and stuff like that. He hooked up one of his 3 Nintendo Switch 2s, and even though the footage was going off of a TV, and it was from an older game from 2018, it was still Nintendo's rules that not a single amount of footage was allowed to leak before midnight. I didn't even want to join the tournament because I'm not very good at Smash Bros, but I overheard this little kid, probably like 3 or 4 years old, talking with his mom, and he really badly wanted to be a part of this tournament, but it was nearing his bedtime. So with that, I offered to be his opponent. His mom looked at me like, don't mess with my kid. But little did she know, my plan was to purposefully lose. I got both of us down to 1 stock, and I let him take the dub. And it was so worth it, because this kid was so happy. And I gave him a high five, and that was that. Unfortunately, the person right after me decided to not be so nice. Anyway, an hour until the launch, they had everyone go outside while they started getting the orders together, and I was thinking about the big moment and decided to look for a nearby store that was still open so I could use their bathroom. I felt like I was walking forever until I finally found a store that had their lights on. I hurried in and asked where their restroom was, only to be forced to leave my backpack at the front counter. I was gonna argue with the person, but I've worked in retail, and I know how sketchy it is to see someone late at night with a backpack going through your store. Plus, I had like 10 minutes to get back to the line, so I ran to the bathroom and bolted back to GameStop. I made it a few minutes before it was go time, and when I tell you this felt like a big life moment, that's an understatement. There had to have been like 40 to 50 people behind me. So many that the line wrapped around the building. Believe it or not, they actually had 2 lines. One for the people that were there at 3 p.m. to lock in their orders, and another for those who had their pre-order but didn't complete it. So picture this. I'm over here, tons of people behind me, and there's also people looking right at me with like their POV, like your POV right now. And I've been a part of 2 other midnight launches and never had that. So there were really people like behind me, in front of me, to the side of me, like they were everywhere. And it only made this moment feel bigger than it was. I kid you not, I've been replaying this moment in my head ever since it happened. It was time for the countdown, and everybody yelled Switch 2 at the end. And then the doors were open and I was let inside. I'm not gonna lie, the second that I stepped foot in the store, my mind immediately went back to 2017, where you had to walk the perimeter of the store to grab the bag of things that you bought. But halfway around the store, I was asked what exactly I was doing. It turns out after 8 years, not everything remains the same. So I walked to the register and they didn't even have everything ready. I'm not sure what they were doing during the hour that we were all outside, but for some reason, they were still bagging like everything. Eventually, I got my stuff and started to head back to the car, but right when I exited the building, people were clapping and cheering for me. It was like just such a surreal moment. And then I went home and recorded the unboxing, and that was that. I ended up waiting a little over 16 hours in total, which actually is not even my record, but I had such a good time. Hopefully that gives a bit more insight from the vlog, but now it's time to play Character Conundrum. Everyone who guessed Herobrine last week is correct. Be among the first 3 to guess correctly and get a shout out. For this week, here's your hints. This character can move at the speed of light, but only for a brief period of time, is a robotic doppelganger, and is equipped with a laser cannon. Who could this be? Let me know down below and find out next week. There aren't any questions from our Patreon supporters this week, so why don't we move on to the Patreon community shoutouts? Beginning with the Solar Superstars, we have shoutouts to Ali, Hi I Am Alive, and Poyo. Of course we can't forget about our elevated hero, Matthew 2EK. If you'd like to further support the channel, feel free to check out the Patreon tiers down in the description below. If you enjoyed episode 25, can you believe that? We're a quarter of the way to triple-digit Skyrises. But yeah, if you enjoyed episode 25 of the Skyrise, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and share this video with some friends. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.